In a highly consumption-oriented world, Sophie relies on her simple, minimalistic way of living with as little possessions as possible in order to simplify her daily routine and disconnect from daily distractions. Sometimes Sophie's minimalistic lifestyle becomes her downfall. When it's her turn to host a dinner party, she isn't equipped to prepare food and always just orders in. Although Sophie would really like to impress her friends with self-prepared food, she doesn't want to possess unnecessary products and harm the environment. Also, as she knows that when she's traveling, she won't be using her devices for several months. At work, luckily her friend Kim tells her that she does not need to decide whether it makes sense to buy a bigger home appliance or not, that she simply uses Cuisimply. Siemens maintains a service platform where they supply new products to. The members of Cuisimply have access to these products. When not needed anymore, products go back to the platform and are free to be taken by someone else. Different membership levels indicate the customer's conditions in the sharing economy created by Siemens. So it's really straightforward. Sophie first selects her preferences, and then she will get a suggestion of her suitable subscription and a fee that she has to pay monthly. It's that simple to be a great host, isn't it? After her 5-month trip to South Africa, Sophie not only comes back with many experiences, but also with her new boyfriend. Thanks to Cuisimply, they ordered their new fridge while traveling and are happy to settle in together.